Morning everybody, it's Rob, Yoga Dad. Hope you're feeling well today. Another beautiful bright morning in Bristol. Almost becomes common for us to wake up in the morning and have sunny skies above us, which is fantastic for our health and well-being. This week we're going to focus on a different theme. So last week we talked about Rachel Scott's little book of yoga practices. We were inspired through a few sequences there. The week before it was all around kindness and Mental Health Awareness Week. And this week it's all about courageousness. So being courageous in the way we can go through our yoga practice, our morning stretch together, but also the way in which we can kind of live our lives in the most courageous way possible. Now, being courageous can mean different things to different people. Can be very small things, can be big things like jumping out of a plane and skydiving, for example. But those small things might be sharing worries that we might have, asking for help, or even trying something new. So joining me this morning for this yoga class, this morning stretch, this might be the first time you've ever done it. Whether it is the first time, or you're a seasoned yogi like me, every day is different. Every day provides a new opportunity to be courageous. So be really proud about that and the way in which you kind of go through the stretches, understanding different feelings and sensations in the body and how that actually makes you act, and learn from that, build confidence, develop self-esteem, and really feel good about yourselves. So today's class we're going to stay on the floor primarily. We're going to move into some all fours positions and then end in a couple of lunges. So hopefully nothing too challenging, but as with the classes last week, as I reminded you, always opportunity to use the dinosaur pillow, whatever else you've got available to provide support under the knees, blankets, that kind of thing. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to move ourselves initially into child's pose, okay? So in child's pose, we've got our feet flat down, tops of our feet flat down on the floor, and just allowing our hips to roll back towards our heels. Now, if that feels uncomfortable at all, feel free to tuck the toes under, just to give yourself a little bit more height. Or as I said, using those kind of dinosaur pillows, that type of thing, just provide a bit of support between the hips to the heels, but also maybe between the front body and the thighs. Okay, so settling yourself down and just taking the forearms and crossing them over one another. And just resting the back of the head or the forehead on the back of the arms. And as you do so, just arriving into the space this morning for our morning stretch. And just feel as the upper body sinks down towards the thighs and the floor beneath. But also the space we're now creating along the back body. As we tune into those feelings and sensations each time we breathe in and out. Now, being courageous in this kind of pose might be just dealing and managing any discomfort you're experiencing and making sure you're stretching in a safe way. So if at any time it becomes uncomfortable, the courageous thing to do is say, no, that's not working for me, and just back out of the pose and find another variation that feels more suitable. But just finding your edge, finding the challenge in this pose. And slowly lifting yourself up. Now we're going to take ourselves now into an all fours position. So hands out to shoulder distance apart just to create some space between the chest. Knees underneath the hips, pressing down through the palms, feeling really strong through the palms. And then we're going to inhale and exhale just to engage our abdominal muscles. So really feel as though the belly button is drawing into the spine. And as we inhale, next time we press down through the palms, we lift our head up towards the ceiling, arching the spine and tailbone pointing up. As we exhale now, we round our spine, we tuck our tailbone under, pressing down through the palms again and extending the arms. And again, really feeling the belly button drawn into the spine as we engage the abdominal muscles. And we do that for a few breaths. So in yoga, this is our cat-cow variations. And maybe even just closing your eyes just for a moment. And just seeing whether you feel like a courageous cat or cow this morning. Or maybe more curious. about where this pose is taking you, where this stretch is taking you. And those sensations you're experiencing in the body, and the way that you're able to integrate the breath with this movement to create more space and to help relax the mind. One more time. Chin to chest, rounding the spine up, tailbone tucking under, head back to a neutral position. Now we're going to stay in this position just for a moment, and we're going to imagine we're drawing the number 8 across the ceiling with our tailbone. So we're taking our hips to one side and then the other, and round, and then over our wrists, and then back down and round. So we do that a few times in one direction. Again, tracing that line as best as possible across the ceiling with the tailbone. And if the number 8 doesn't work for you, then be courageous. Choose a different number. Use a different shape that works for you. We alternate in the opposite direction if you've not done so already. And being curious, again, about where you're holding tension in the body this morning, and how exploring these movements can really help ease that. Now bring yourself back into a neutral position again. And now taking the hips back towards the heels again, extending the arms out in front, feeling that length now all the way along the side of the body, down towards the hips and the bum, towards the heels, and pressing down through the bottom of the feet as we now lift our upper body forward, shoulders above the wrist, pressing down through the palms, lifting our knees, lifting our hips and bum up towards the ceiling as we arrive into our first downward dog. Now keeping those knees nice and bent as we lift our hips up and back towards the back of the room, and pressing down through the palms and the hands and lengthening along the side body. Now feel free to walk out your dog by lowering one heel down towards the floor and then the other. And again, being courageous about any sensations, tightness, tension you might be experiencing along the back of the legs, and just move in a way that works for you. Now bending the knees and slowly walking the hands back towards the feet at the back of the room. Okay? Just move yourself forward a little bit. Now crossing the forearms over one another again, as we did in our child's pose, and then lowering the head down. And keeping those knees bent just to ease any tension again along the back of the legs and really support that release along the length of the spine. Really feeling the back body falling down towards the floor, head nice and heavy, looking back between the knees, between the thighs, and really following the breath as it traces a line all the way along the back of the body and creating more space through this release. Now lowering the fingers now down towards the floor, almost imagining it's like a waterfall, and then bending the knees down a little bit more as we now walk our hands out and we arrive into our first plank position. Now lowering our knees down first off, and again just checking in, just making sure shoulders above the wrists, you're keeping the back body nice and long, the hips, the pelvis tilting forward just to protect the lower back, okay? And if it feels comfortable and you feel courageous enough, then lifting those knees up and just checking in now with how that feels for the body. If it feels too strong, feels like you're becoming fatigued very quickly, then feel free just to lower those knees down again. Otherwise, with the knees lifted, really feel as though the front body is lifting up towards the ceiling, and almost imagining you're drawing a diagonal line all the way from the back of the head down towards the heels. Now, if you've not done so already, lowering the knees down, lowering the chin down, and lowering the hips down. And as you arrive down onto the floor, you untuck your toes, okay? Taking the elbows now underneath the wrists and keeping the palms flat down on the floor. Now lifting the crown of the head up and looking directly forward. Now really feeling that length now along the back body again. Hips sinking down towards the floor. And if that feels uncomfortable at all, particularly for the low back, then feel free to take the elbows a little bit further forward just to decrease and ease that back bend. Otherwise, keeping the elbows underneath the shoulders, create space across the chest, Really feeling like a courageous sphinx as we look forward. Chest opening between the upper arms. Length all the way along the back body. Now slowly lowering the chin down towards the floor, keeping the hands now underneath the shoulders. Elbows tucked in nice and tight to the ribs. Tucking the toes back under, pressing down through the palms, and again, feeling how courageous you are in terms of the plank position today. So is it knees lowered or lifted, whichever works best for you. And then continuing to press down through the palms as we now lift our hips and our bum up towards the ceiling again. And we arrive into our downward dog for a second time. Again, bending the knees as much as you need to ease any tension along the back of the legs. Pressing down nice and firmly through all four corners of the palm. Walking those heels out again, lengthening one heel down and then the other. And maybe even this time we can integrate the breath into that movement as we inhale and lift both heels up at the same time. And exhaling back down again, breathing out. And just going to a point at which it feels comfortable for you along the back of the legs. Now bending the knees, walking the hands now back in towards the thighs. Now if this feels uncomfortable at all, feel free just to lift yourself up. So hips off the bum off the heels. Otherwise just keeping yourself sitting back, so hips towards the heels, bum towards the heels. And feeling that stretch, that length now along the soles of the feet, but also just to introduce some mobility for the toes as well. Now for all of us, let's take our hands now onto our hips as we lift ourselves back up again. And we're going to take our right foot forward. So right foot forward and left foot back. And feel free just to adjust yourself into this low lunge position in a way that feels comfortable to you. So we heel toe that front foot forward to the point at which we feel the stretch now along the back of the right leg, but also more importantly along the inside of that left leg, and either with the toes tucked or untucked on the back foot. Okay, I'm going to go untucked. Bringing the hands now across that front knee. I'm just really feeling that length now, all the way from the crown of the head, top of the head up towards the ceiling. Expansiveness across the chest and the shoulders again. Opening the arms out in front now. Thumbs up towards the ceiling, palms facing one another, shoulders nice and relaxed away from the ears. An option to lift the arms up and overhead. And as we do so, really feel as though we're lengthening, reaching those fingers up towards the ceiling, lengthening along the side body, all the way down towards the hips. And the hips feeling as though they're sinking forward and down along the inside of that front thigh. And just supporting that release in the back leg. Now hands back down either side of that front foot, framing that front foot. If you've not done so already, tucking the toes on the back foot and actually taking yourself onto the tips of the fingers, either side of that front foot, and then bringing the right knee back towards the left. And we'll just take ourselves back again just for a moment, just sitting ourselves back onto our heels, lifting ourselves back up again, hands onto the hips, and we do the same on the left hand side. So left leg forward this time, and just adjusting yourself to a position that feels comfortable to you. And again, if you need to, use support, particularly for that back knee, cushion or pillow, just to provide that bit of extra comfort in this position. When you feel like you've got a comfortable position, hands across the front knee now, length along the spine, all the way up towards the crown of the head and the ceiling above. And really feel as though those thighs or the hips are kind of moving forward and down along the inside of this front leg. Supporting that release now along the inside of the back leg. And again, if it feels comfortable, taking the hands forward, thumbs up towards the ceiling, nice straight back, arms up and overhead, reaching those fingers up, length along the side body, all the way down towards the hips. And continuing to release those hips down towards the ground, supporting that release in an area that often holds so much tension in the body. Helps unlock emotions and our energy. And really energize our day. Then inhaling to lengthen. Exhaling, hands now either side of that front foot, framing the fingers, framing the foot with the fingertips. And then slowly taking the left knee now back towards the right. Walking the hips back towards the heels again, and bum towards the heels, and just sitting back one more time. And we're going to go back to our child's pose that we were in earlier. So again, use any support that you need. Option here to either have the knees kind of parallel, the legs parallel to one another, or this time maybe even taking the knees out either side of the hips, just to create a little bit more space between the inner thighs. Options now either to cross the forearms over one another, rest the forehead on the back of the arms, or extending the arms out, forearms flat down on the floor and just resting the head and just allowing the upper body now to sink down. And as we finish our class today in this child's pose, we think about the way in which we can be courageous, or the way we were courageous as a baby, as a small child. Those brave first steps that we took, that we no longer can remember, but also almost applying that each time we arrive for this morning stretch. Taking those baby steps, tentative steps forward. Tuning into those feelings and sensations, maybe any fears that we hold. And just looking at the way in which we can move and breathe in a way that enables us to manage those fears in a positive way. To boost our confidence, to develop self-esteem, and really feel good about ourselves. And slowly lifting our head, walking our hands back in towards the knees, tucking our toes back under one final time and just hips onto the heels. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this morning stretch. Have a wonderful day and a week ahead. And I really hope to see you again soon. Namaste.